It's Friday, the 4th of February. Good morning, Europe. Thanks for joining us here on Euronews. The headlines.
Washington is accusing Moscow of planning to fake a video as a pretext into starting a conflict with Ukraine, which Russia denies. The US has come under criticism over the killing of an ISIS leader, as it's reported around 10 civilians were killed too. And we look at how women in Kenya are turning fish skins into shoes and products as a way to make a living and reduce waste.
Washington accuses Moscow of planning to fake a video as a pretext for an invasion of Ukraine by staging fabricated attacks by Ukrainian military. This claim comes amid tensions over the Russian troop buildup around the Ukrainian border.
The production of this propaganda video is one of a number of options that the Russian government is developing as a fake pretext to initiate and potentially justify military aggression against Ukraine. We don't know if Russia will necessarily use this or another option in the coming days. We are publicizing it now, however, in order to lay bare the extent of Russia's destabilizing actions towards Ukraine and to dissuade Russia from continuing this dangerous campaign and ultimately launching a military attack.
However, Moscow denies they are planning any such thing. The Kremlin has blamed the US and NATO of undermining the region's security. Russia has called on the US to de-escalate after Biden announced he will deploy 3,000 extra troops in Eastern Europe. Russia and Belarus will soon start their joint military drills next week, but it comes as Ukraine has lived with the threat of a Russian incursion since 2014. On Thursday, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed Turkish President Erdogan into the standoff situation between Kiev and Moscow. As an ally of both Putin and Zelensky, Erdogan has offered to host a Ukraine-Russia crisis summit.
U.S. officials are being quoted as having obtained intelligence that Russia was planning on staging a fake attack, filming it, and using the video as a pretext to invade Ukraine. According to that intelligence, Russia had already started hiring actors for the video that would also feature fake Ukrainian military equipment and depict an attack on Russian soil or against Russian speakers in the east of Ukraine. That would, of course, feed the narrative that Moscow has been putting forward that Russia is under threat and justify military action. Russia has for a while now denied it has plans to invade this country, but has also refused to explain the buildup of troops on the border with Ukraine, saying that whatever it does with its soldiers, it's no one else's businesses. The intelligence provided by Americans also indicates that Russia was planning on involving Turkish drones on that staged attack in order to fully implicate NATO. That, of course, as the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan came here to the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, to pay a visit to his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, and to show support to Ukraine. Erdogan also offered to mediate the crisis and to host a Ukraine-Russia summit in order to diffuse tensions and to avoid a war between what he described as two important friends. Annelies Borges from the Ukrainian capital Kyiv for Euronews.
The US has come under criticism after killing ISIS leader Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Quraishi in Syria. In the raid led by special forces, it's reported more than 10 civilians were killed too. The attack is still being investigated, but so far it is understood that the terrorist detonated an explosive device, which caused the building he was in to collapse. A senior deputy of the terror group is also thought to be dead.
Our team is still compiling the report, but we do know that as our troops approached to capture the terrorist, in a final act of desperate cowardness, he, with no regard to the lives of his own family or others in the building, he chose to blow himself up, not just to the vest, but to blow up that third floor, rather than face justice for the crimes he has committed. We remain vigilant. We remain prepared. Last night's operation took a major terrorist leader off the battlefield, and it sent a strong message to terrorists around the world. We will come after you and find you.
The killing of the Islamic State leader is the biggest raid outside the US since 2019, when the US Special Forces killed the terrorist group's former leader, al-Baghdadi. The raid took place on the outskirts of the opposition-held town of Atman, close to the Turkish border.
Well, the fallout from the political instability in Northern Ireland continues in Brussels today. We know that the Northern Ireland Agricultural Minister, Edwin Poots, decided he was no longer going to support checks on goods coming from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, which is the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is international law. It's part of the EU-UK withdrawal agreement on Brexit. On the ground, the EU says those checks are still taking place, but the position is also that it's the UK's responsibility to ensure the Northern Ireland Protocol is implemented. Brussels sources Euronews have spoken to said that if the UK doesn't do so, that there can be sanctions, such as a partial suspension of the trade agreement between the EU and the UK. Yesterday, Maroš Šefčovič, the EU Brexit negotiator, met with his counterpart Liz Truss. They had talks, but the progress of those talks was minimal. The EU describes the whole situation as unhelpful.
"24 hours before the official start of the Winter Olympic Games, Beijing residents gathered around a countdown clock in a busy shopping district. Although the first opening events took place on Wednesday, the opening ceremony is scheduled today at 8 p.m. local time, 1 p.m. Central European time. In some other world cities, some groups weren't so eager for the games to happen. In San Francisco, a coalition group including Uyghurs and people from Hong Kong and Tibet protested on the Golden Gate Bridge and urged people to ignore the events. A demonstrator asked athletes to decline the medals, calling them bloodshed medals. In Europe, hundreds of Tibetans and supporters gathered outside the Swiss headquarters of the International Olympic Committee in Lausanne. They held banners saying boycott Beijing Winter Olympics and Games of Shame. Some countries have stated they will not send diplomats to the Olympics.
Colombian transit police have seized 120 kilograms of cocaine from an ambulance in the country's northwest. An alleged doctor travelling inside the vehicle initially told officers he was carrying a COVID-19 patient in an attempt to stop a search. In total, 60 packages filled with the drug were found. So far, 5 people linked to the ambulance have been placed in custody. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has secured last-minute backing for a key labour reform requested by Brussels. The reform is expected to help end job insecurity. Lacking support from traditional allies, it was pushed through by the Liberal Ciudadanos and some centre-right lawmakers, with a majority of just 1 vote. Despite taking effect on January the 1st, the reform still required parliamentary approval.
At least 12 people of the French Indian Ocean territory of La Réunion were injured after the tropical cyclone Batsirai battered the island, hitting it with torrential rains and powerful winds. Authorities decided to keep the island on red alert for more than 24 hours, forcing its nearly 900,000 residents to barricade themselves indoors. A night of shattered hopes in Cameroon after the Pharaohs of Egypt booked their place for the final match of the AFCON 2021 competition at the expense of their hosts. Neither team managed to open the score during regulation time and extra time and had to go through a penalty shootout. The Pharaohs relied on the talent of their number 2 goalkeeper Mohamed Abou Gabal, also known as Gabaski, who stopped 3 of the 4 Cameroonian shots on goal. Egypt will now try to win a Nate African Cup of Nations. They will face Senegal on Sunday, who are aiming for a first title in this competition.
A reminder that you can find more on all our top stories in our web coverage at euronews.com. And we'll have more news from across Europe after this break.